This podcast is supported in part by Carolina Forward, a nonpartisan organization that advocates for ideas, policies, and values to build a stronger North Carolina, one that works for all its people as a strong, diverse, multiracial democracy. For more on them, visit carolinaforward.org. Hey friends, welcome back to the Foxfire Dispatch. I'm Liz Purvis, a pragmatic progressive organizer, here with my favorite co-host and fellow millennial politico, Gina Baxter. Hey Gina.
Hey y'all, Gina here with the North Carolina General Assembly stuck in limbo, a national story gone wrong in reporting, and a new mini segment that we're calling County Chair Confessional. Liz, any hints about what you're going to share?
I think folks are just going to have to listen until the end. But seriously, I know it's been a week. I know it's been a week for us and like for a lot of people in our circle. Has there been like a bright spot in it for you that you want to share?
I knew that you were going to ask this, and I panicked when I saw that. I was like, what has been a bright spot? But there has been a lot of good stuff. It has just been like a hell of a week. We had the Apple Festival in Hendersonville over the weekend. So I'm going to count Labor Day as this week and say that having our Apple Festival in Hendersonville and having like some of the biggest sales that we've seen in years at the Apple Festival was really cool because of all of the post-Helene concerns. We're almost a year post-Helene right now. So definitely a bright spot was that people came to town, they spent their money with their local farmers, and that our community felt really supported over this past weekend. How about for you?
Oh, yay. Yay, small businesses. Yay, family farmers.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I did write this down and I could have thought about what a bright spot was for me, but I too will take something from last weekend and pull it into this week and say that my bright spot was I recently got to have like a 24-hour little poetry friends meet up with some of my closest girlfriends in Durham, and we just like hung out for like an afternoon into the next day and ate munchies and chit chatted and watched shows and like had a really good little fellowship time with my grad school friends.
That's so sweet. I love that. Girlhood forever. So important.
Yeah. Yeah. Chelsea Krieg and Ariel Abear, they both have poetry books coming out next year. Very excited.
Oh, I know their names from our socials.
Yeah.
Hey girls, we love you.
We love you so much. All right. So we had a little bright spot, had a little chit chat. Let's dive into what the hell is happening here in North Carolina.
Yeah, so big news is that the General Assembly of North Carolina is in session, but not meeting for votes, even though the new fiscal year kicked off July 1st, and lawmakers still haven't at this point passed a full state budget.
Which is crazy, right? No budget means no raises for teachers, even modest ones, no raises for state employees, even modest cost of living increases. It means stalled new projects. There's a new children's hospital that's supposed to be built in Apex that has essentially been put on ice. And this is not because of Democrat and Republican infighting. This is because the Republican leaders in the NC House and NC Senate, Phil Berger and Destin Hall, will not put discussion of the budget on the schedule.
Exactly. Yeah, they've passed knee budget, which is stopgap funding. So schools and universities are hanging in there for now using pieces of the budget from years past, but long-term infrastructure, raises, and new programs are all delayed by this lack of a budget.
I was trying to find a couple of different news stories about this as I was working on our script this week, and I really just kept coming back to like, what is the deal with this GOP standoff? Like we said before, it's not between parties, but between these two GOP leaders. It seems like they're conflicted over tax cut triggers and the size of state worker raises and funding new priorities like that children's hospital. But have you heard anything about like the Republican infighting that is preventing us from getting shit done in this state?
I mean, it's so hard to understand the inner workings of really anything at the General Assembly at this point, but House Minority Leader Robert Reed said Republicans are prioritizing culture war bills over helping folks facing inflation, rising healthcare premiums, and crowded classrooms. And that feels dead on. Like, we can't move forward with the things that we need to do if we're getting caught up in all of these culture war bills and if we're concerned about who is allowed to say and do what in the General Assembly rather than the material well-being of the people of the state of North Carolina who work hard and have elected these folks to represent them.
Yeah, and it feels like it matters so much to the folks who are teachers that they are not even getting cost of living increases, small pay increases, in particular because their healthcare premiums are rising this year. And that is something that we fully can lay at the feet of the Republican administration and uncertainty around healthcare plans. And I think we probably both know people who are teachers who wait tables or work at gas stations or babysit or have a second or a third part-time job, even as they work well over 40 hours a week to teach kids. And that just doesn't sit right with me. It just doesn't sit right with me that that's where we are, and that this assembly could do something, like a little something, to take a little pressure off, and they're not doing it.
Yeah, and I would also like to include early educators when we talk about teachers. A lot of times we focus on public school teachers who are so dedicated and so important and so critical to the well-being of all of North Carolina, right? Because we don't want to grow up and have our kids grow into people who don't know anything, right? Like, we want a community of smart people around us, and teachers do that work. Early educators, too. There has been no movement for childcare. There has been no movement to support early educators. When I taught preschool, I also bartended, and so did every other person that I worked with. Nobody was able to survive on that pay. So we're seeing it all the way from higher education to early education, that the people who put in the blood, sweat, and tears to ensure that we grow up in an intelligent and well-read and able to function North Carolina are getting shafted. So if you live in North Carolina or another state where budget delays hurt schools or local services in general, you can call your local representatives and demand that they institute a full budget agreement. Every delay increases the chance that folks fall through the cracks and that their needs aren't met.
And I don't know about you, but I think we were in college right around the time that there was like a teaching scholarship, a North Carolina teachers scholarship that got sunsetted or like ended, and people like finished and they didn't let more people into that program. And like, when I think of it, I've been out of college for about a little over 10 years, and there's not a single person I went to college with who went to college to be a teacher who is still teaching. And by and large, like, for everybody for whom like I've seen their Facebook posts about their last year teaching, or texted with them about their decisions, it's like not because they don't love teaching. It's not because they don't love kids or like value education. It's because they can't make ends meet in this job.
Yes. Yes. Nobody, I shouldn't say nobody. People don't go into that job without a passion for it. And that passion deserves to be supported and uplifted and cherished, really. I mean, that is the future of North Carolina. So we need to pass a budget so that our teachers can have some incentive to continue teaching, because we are at a point now where, I mean, we're asking teachers to work 50 hours a week and make an Amazon wish list. Nobody wants to do that job.
Or spend
Even people
hundreds of
who,
dollars, right, of their own money for this
yes,
shit.
it is not normal that we are used to teachers sending out Amazon wish lists every year. We should not normalize that. That's not okay. We have money for it. We have money for kids to have paper and pens and pencil and their textbooks and scissors and crayons and all the stuff that they need. And it's really beautiful that the community comes together and supports teachers through buying it. But we already pay for that
We
with our tax money.
we should not have to mutual aid the public school system. That
We should
is
not.
not how that should work. The system that I bought into was that I paid taxes And some of those taxes go to public goods, and public school education is without a doubt one of those public goods.
I saw a tweet recently that someone said, like, I don't think that homeowners without children should have to pay for schools.
Saw that.
And the response was like, I'm a homeowner without kids and I'm happy to pay for schools because I don't want to have a community of idiots when these kids grow up. And I was like, that is exactly it. Like, I don't have kids and I still don't want the kids who exist right now to grow up dumb because I'm going to have to live with that. Like, not only do they deserve better, but like, if you can't even buy into that, can you buy into the selfish aspect of those are going to be your neighbors? They're going to be the people that work in your community. They're going to be the people that are doing the job that you're doing right now at some point in the future. It's just the most basic common sense to prioritize the well-being of kids. And like the easiest in for empathy. They're kids.
They're kids. They're kids. It shouldn't matter whose they are. Like, empathetic adults should all be able to agree that kids should have the resources they need. Also, on the most selfish level, if you are, hey, homeowner, no kids, never having kids, like, somebody else's kid is going to wipe your butt when you get old, if you're lucky enough to get old, right? Like, wouldn't you like that person to have gone through a solid education system? Like, your caregivers, again, it shouldn't like have to be broken down into here's the most selfish way this could possibly impact you. Like, we should just really be able to support children, but apparently that's controversial in Donald Trump's America.
Yeah.
I have two other thoughts as we circle around this. One is that the older I get, the more I think there is not a job in this country that is worth less than $75,000 a year. And like, we need to, as a country, work to raise the funds and income that people are able to accrue, because what we pay teachers here just isn't cutting it. And also what we pay people in so many service industry jobs and so many professions where there are many women, like nursing, is not where it needs to be. And I just think like 100,000 a year less than Congress makes, yeah, like everybody deserves that.
Okay.
You
What's
look
the
skeptical.
hourly? I am.
I think hourly that's like 35 or $40 an hour, I think. But I haven't done that math.
Yeah, I'm gonna push back on the economic impacts of every person in America making $75,000 a year. But I see your point that we need to value. That specific number feels like maybe the end game of my career for me.
Mm.
And I'm pretty comfortable right now because I don't have kids. But it's also like a barrier to lots of things that I just have normalized not having access to.
Yeah, and I guess like I think things should be more than okay, you know? I think that our house bills should be less than 30% of our income, that it should be possible to save 20% of your income, and that it should then also be possible to have like a little fun money, which is just like non-existent in my life right now, like where I am at.
Yeah. I think that my pushback would be that we pass legislation to control artificial inflation on utilities
Mm.
and needed goods before because of the like trickle down impacts of raising like things would just become more expensive than if we all made more because there's no cap on anything. So if we all made a minimum amount of money, the fallout would be that things would just be more than that. And then we've like created this artificial market.
I guess I just do not totally understand the idea that like we raise the bottom and it also raises prices. But I think also like, we've lived through like a COVID era price gouging situation with like a lot of different, across industries. And so I really just come back to like, surely there is a way for like people to have more than what is needed to meet the most basic needs,
Agreed.
you know,
Agreed.
like with a 40-hour work week. with a
At a
with
maximum.
at a maximum, to go back to like last week's conversation, right?
Yeah.
And especially when we think about like, the average house in my town is $400,000, but
Yeah.
the average income in my town is $43,000. So
Roughly same.
there's no path. There's no
Yeah.
path to saving that 20%. That just the money doesn't work. And obviously teachers just should be able to, afford a moderately reasonable quality of life with everything that they are
Yeah.
giving to society.
Yeah, call us radical. Teachers should be able to pay their bills. No, and I think it's good. I think it's good that we need to get Sam on here to talk about economics and like pathways forward, because I think it's important for us to talk about the reality of platforming ideas that make sense to us. Like you and I have the same end game of closing the gap, but we have different approaches or different thoughts about approaches to doing it. And I think that's stuff for people on the left to dig into
Mhm.
and talk about and have discussions around and like be open to learning about, because it's stuff that we need to understand how to offer people something other than we're not the party of Donald Trump. We also need to be saying like, here's the thing that we support and here are the economics behind it and here's the data behind it and here's how it will materially help you
Mhm.
and your family and your community going forward. So I feel like, you know,
Mhm.
going around about which way to do it is a cool part of like leaning into deciding who we are as a party and
Mhm.
deciding who we are as people who are interested in bettering our country rather than talking about whatever the North Carolina General Assembly is talking about.
No, for sure. I mean, I'm really into your idea about like public utilities and like price caps. I'm also for those private utilities potentially like making them public,
Hmm.
where we have had routine bad actors who have no interest in like actually serving people. I think like I don't know about you. I feel like we both live in houses that are like they're not ancient, but they got some years on them, right? And
Hmm.
like my house is not energy efficient, but what that
Yeah.
practically, and we can't afford to do everything to the house that we would need to do to make it energy efficient, right? Sorry, not happening.
Right.
But that means that my Duke energy bill for about 6 to 8 months of the year is between 220 and $400 a month, which is more than my car payment. Like, and every time I pay that bill, I'm just like, there's no this bill can't possibly need to be this expensive.
It's not. It doesn't need to be. You're right.
And just like, oh, I imagine sometimes, because I grew up like lower middle class, but like we were always in a house, thinking about how my parents' bills might have been 15, 20, 25 years ago in North Carolina. Like, I don't think the electricity bill was a car payment. Like, not except for maybe one or two of the hottest or the coldest months of the year. But like, I mean, and we're not living crazy. Like when the heat's on 67, 68. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Right.
it's
Right.
it's cold actually.
Right.
And it's still a bill that like if there were some balancing or some regulation there, that could make like such a significant difference in our monthly expenses.
Yeah, absolutely. There are so many pieces of it that just push all of us to like a lack of understanding and transparency too, that we we really should have a better understanding and a better knowledge of the bills that we have to pay every month and where the amount that we pay comes from and who determines it, and the fact that Duke Energy gives money to the North Carolina Republican Party and all of the moving pieces that we see in legislation and how that becomes the real life impact that we face and how we are being sold out all the time by glad handing legislators that have been entrusted to protect us is just it's a constant spider web of things that like go back for decades. and are part of promises that people made behind closed doors and things that may never come to light. And it's really, really frustrating, and it really has a real life impact on so many people. And that is where I would move that we start when we think about making life more livable for everybody. But who's to say how to undo the spider web at this point? Except maybe an economist.
Except maybe an economist. We could have had an economist as our treasurer if we'd elected the Democrat. But
Wouldn't that be cool?
what a wild concept. Also, that Duke story, I know we're not really talking about this week, but maybe that would be a good like episode topic for next week, because for folks who don't know,
Yeah.
like Duke handed a 6-figure check to Republicans who handed it to Judge Griffin in his case against Allison Briggs. And then the
To the North Carolina General Assembly.
Yeah.
Too, not just like to the National Party, but specifically while we were going through all of this stuff with Allison Riggs.
Yeah. And then the North Carolina General Assembly, basically in a short order, passed and then overturned the veto of the bill that allows Duke to effectively raise its rates, right? So I don't know if we have a clearer, concise, like, this company wrote a 6-figure check so they could make more profit, and it worked for them.
Yes. And it's public knowledge, and we can't do anything about it because it's legal.
Which is wild.
Yeah. It's expected. I told Dylan about it. I told my husband about it, and he was like, figures. Like, that's the world we live in.
See, and I continue to be like flabbergasted, because it's like
I know.
it shouldn't be, actually. But I think you're right. I think like folks who are not as like really like in deep into politics, or maybe as active, because like both of us really believe we can change it with the things that we do, right? Like we're showing all these people who are already disinterested that like, yeah, no, you don't need to. There's nothing you could do. What could you do? Duke can write a check. You can't write that check.
Well, and people have been internalizing it, right? Like that response comes from a place of like being beat over the head with this information and being exhausted from the nothing that is done about it or that can be done about it. And that is where state representatives matter. And the delegation that you elect from your area of the state can represent these needs in Raleigh. So things like this really matter, because we should be sending people to Raleigh to fight this fight for us. That should be the work of the person who is running to be elected. It is the work of everybody on the ground too, but also like we hired people to do that job when we elected them and paid them and sent them to Raleigh.
We hired
So
people
they need to be
represent us and to act as a leader with all these other like big strong forces that there are in the state and nationally, right? And people are just really just shitting the bed on that, like Senator Warren Daniel trading stocks on the floor of the NC State Senate this week. Do you see that?
Yeah.
So this Warren Daniel fellow, GOP state senator, I could not. Speaking of being flabbergasted, like with the Duke shit, like cannot believe the hubris of let me pull up my laptop on the Senate floor. We got business to do, things going on, and what am I going? I'm going to trade stocks. I got people in the gallery. Like what?
Yeah, that footage came from the gallery, right?
It looked like
it was overhead.
Yeah.
People can see what you're doing on your phone and on your computer. To any legislators who are listening, we can see what's on your screens. And we also have tiny screens, and we will record it and put it on TikTok. So do your business somewhere else. We're paying you to pay attention.
Yeah, and I also just like
it's the least you could do.
It's the least you could do. State lawmakers cannot campaign while they are in that building. If there's not a rule that says you can't trade stocks in that building, I propose we make one.
We could call it the Daniel Act.
Brian Kahn, Terrence Everett, if you're listening.
Introduce it.
Yeah, no, that's wild. It just really shows a level of disrespect for the people that elected you too. That like that's what somebody would spend their time doing when they got work to do on the floor. So, all right, I know we've talked about this for a minute. How do we feel about transitioning over to the national blip and talking about another really unfortunate story?
That sounds good. We are going to give you one more heavy thing and then we'll get into fun stuff. So, Liz, take it away.
So we are gonna pivot to a national story that I have honestly found like really gut-wrenching, really disturbing, and what it is revealing about how rights, in this case, particularly women's rights, can be eroded, how the Overton window that we talked about a little last week can really shift when the media messes up in honestly, like as I read a number of stories about this, messes up in huge ways over and over.
Yeah. So, it's important for us to talk about this one because it is a women's rights and a women's health issue, but also, as we always say, everything's political. So, this time we're talking about the headlines that have been floating around that say things like dead baby found in cheerleader's closet, which is a jarring, attention grabbing headline, which is how news is written now. But what was actually happening was that a 21-year-old University of Kentucky cheerleader named Lakin Snelling had been pregnant in a state where abortion became illegal as soon as Dobbs was overturned in 2022. They found an 18-week fetus that was the result of a miscarriage, and those are not the same things as finding a dead infant. The implication in the headlines is that she murdered her infant and hid it. What was found was a fetus that was midterm.
Which would it is gross misrepresentation, right, of this situation. Like that would be awful if that is what happened. If a woman who did not know she was pregnant gave birth and then committed infanticide, like awful crime is bad. However, that is not what happened here. We do not know if Lakin knew that she was pregnant, but what we do know is around 18 weeks gestation on August 27th, Lakin had what, for all intents and purposes, and I know you already mentioned it, but like seems to me was a miscarriage. I can't find any reporting that talks about it like this, but 18 weeks is well under the like age of viability for a fetus. And so it would follow that a fetus that cannot exist outside the womb is a fetus and not a baby. And all the reporting around this has really lacked the kind of clarity that I would hope to see, even from big news stations like NBC, but also from local stations saying that this college student gave birth, saying that it was an infant or a baby. And that is both factually incorrect and the nuance of this woman's real like situation has not even made it into the headlines, into the story at all. And this I'm sure that folks can see, right? That this kind of sloppy, sensationalist, stigmatizing language does a lot to shape public perception, and really feeds anti-choice narratives that affect everybody.
Yeah, and that misstep is so dangerous. Without precise reporting, public discourse becomes weaponized and it gets twisted into op ed headlines where we should have rigor and we should have a focus on the medical reality of the situation instead of throwing gasoline on these narratives that get people hyped up for clicks. This is a woman's real life reality that we are sensationalizing inaccurately in order to create a story that is so far from accurate that it is almost impossible to wade through the story of
No.
what she has gone through. And you can Google her name now and it comes up.
And we really need journalists to do better. Like, we are living in a post Dobbs America, but that doesn't mean that journalists need to cede ground to fucking Gilead. Handmaid's Tale reference, not like the actual company.
Oh
But
yeah, you need to bring a bell.
but this story about one college student is bigger than her experience. It's also about like how female bodies and healthcare choices are scrutinized and criminalized and sensationalized in the most charitable reading of what happened to this girl, barely adult, right? Is should possibly not even known she was pregnant. 18 weeks is in the middle, but like conceivably you could not be showing. Had a miscarriage,
Absolutely.
freaked the fuck out because she's living and going to school in a state where abortion is illegal. And we know other southern states have criminalized miscarriages for women before, often black women. And this is a white girl. But I could see a really charitable interpretation of this. It is like this woman did not know what was happening to her. She had an uncomfortable, painful thing happen and was like, oh my God. And now there could be criminal consequences. What do I do?
Uncomfortable and painful and also like traumatic and very deeply sad. Like the emotions that a person in that situation could be feeling are so vast. And to not be able to access information about care or options, or at least to not be able to do so without being scared of criminal consequences attached to it, is devastating.
Now she's not in jail, but she's out on a six-figure bond and on house arrest at her parents' house in Tennessee. And this is one of those situations where it's like, it doesn't matter what this girl's political affiliation is. It doesn't matter to me whether she is like a pro life girly or a pro abortion whenever it is needed girly. Like there have been enormous consequences for a healthcare thing that happened to her that I cannot the unjustness of the state doing this to people. And like, I know the history of the state is we've done a lot of fucked up shit to people's bodies, but this is so fucked up.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point, we do need better journalism and we need to hold our journalists to account for things like this. But we also need better solidarity because every time that something like this happens, every time that a woman's health issue is turned into a headline or some kind of spectacle, it is women and particularly pregnant folks across the American South who are all experiencing this as a region who pay the price for it. So we all deserve truth, accuracy, and empathy, and we deserve to be treated as people and not headlines.
For sure. And I do want to point out, like we've talked about this one woman story a lot. This absolutely is not happening in a vacuum. Like this is happening across the South. Women are being prosecuted for pregnancy outcomes in Alabama and Mississippi and South Carolina. Just last year, south of us, a South Carolina woman was charged with homicide after she had a stillbirth. And in Alabama, prosecutors have used criminal endangerment laws to go after women who miscarried. And yeah, obviously, we talked earlier this year about the poor woman in Georgia who like died and was kept alive forcibly, like just
To
to
incubate
incubate a fetus.
a fetus. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's important for us to talk about this. I know it's really hard and really heavy and not fun. And there will be jokes in the future, but it's important for us to use this platform to talk about the experiences of women across the South specifically because we are women in the South and we need to ensure that we are telling accurate stories about the experiences that people have because that's what we all deserve.
Yeah, and it's not always a possibility for people to leave. I feel like I've heard on some like other podcasts before, like if you're thinking about college, I wouldn't think about it in these southern states. What if the next closest safe state is 600 miles away from your family and you've never had a car? There are so many ways that people can be trapped or choose still to be in places where our freedoms and rights are being eroded. And yeah, I think we should all send a lot of compassion Lakin's way as she and her family now have to deal with this.
Yeah. And we could spend 100 years talking about the just leave narrative and why we don't subscribe to it.
Obviously.
But the short point for now is exactly what you said, that it's not always possible and people deserve to be safe wherever they are.
In this supposedly great country. Pretty low bar. Safe wherever you are.
Pretty low bar. Want to take a breath and talk about some music?
Oh, yes. Take a little matcha sip.
Great. I love that. I always think I'm going to like matcha, and then I get one and I'm like, never mind, this tastes like dirt. I don't like them.
Do you normally get it with almond milk or a different kind of milk?
I get it with cow milk and honey.
Oh.
Or I don't know. Do I get it with cow milk? How do they give it to you?
I typically order almond milk or oat milk because I am a occasionally lactose intolerant girly, but I really like the almond milk for the flavor that it adds to the matcha.
Okay. Maybe I'll try that. Okay, so usually for Carolina Soundcheck, I tell you about a music artist, I guess is what I'm calling them, a musician in North Carolina, often a girl, not always. Today, I am going to do something a little bit different. I want to make a plug for one of my favorite ever local radio stations, which is WNCW, and a shout out to Carol Rifkin. Are you familiar with Carol at all?
No, but I'm actually not sure if what, okay, 88.7 is WNCW?
That's its number out here. It has different ones in different places.
Gotcha. I don't know that I have listened to it or if it's not that all the way down in Catawba County because I know the Catawba County to Raleigh radio.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Further west. You can use the TuneIn app if you can't access it, or you can listen to it online at their website, which is wncw.org. They broadcast out of Isothermal Community College, which is in Spindale. And part of why I love that station so much is because they focus on old time music because it broadcasts through Appalachia, right? Like the western part of the state. And one of my favorite hosts is Carol Rifkin. Her show is called This Old Porch. First of all, adorable name. She is also an award-winning clogger. Are you familiar with like flatfoot dancing and clogging?
So one of the YDs in Raleigh is internationally
What's a
known.
YD?
Oh, one of the young Democrats in Wake is like internationally known Irish step dancer. So I've seen a little bit, but I know that's different from clogging. But like they're in the same family.
Yeah, and clogging comes from Irish clogging.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, because of the Appalachian Scotch Irish thing. But some people call it flatfoot dancing. In a little further west of us, they call it flatfoot. Like in Kentucky, they call it flatfoot. We call it clogging more here. And it's called flatfoot because you're generally on a board, on like a piece of plywood or on a barn floor or something wooden, and you're kicking your foot back and forth in time to the music. So this is like an old Appalachian tradition. It's very precious in the Appalachian scope of like dance and music. And Carol Rifkin is an award-winning clogger. She like teaches clogging. She clogs every year at Merlefest. And Doc Watson, I just read this today. I didn't know this about her, and I will be talking to her about it. Doc Watson allegedly complimented her dancing one time and said it was the best dancing he had ever heard because he's blind. So he was hearing her feet on a wood floor along with old time music and said that it was the best clogging he'd ever heard, which is so cool because Doc Watson's heard everybody dance probably.
That's so special.
I know. We love Doc. So Carol is really dedicated to preserving old time music and the old time tradition. And she brings it to people through her work at the radio station, through this show, This Old Porch. And she also directs the French Broad Valley Music Association weekly jam nights here in Hendersonville. So the French Broad Valley Music Association is a group of old time music proselytizers, really. They are like keepers of old time, and they have a weekly jam every Wednesday night out here in Hendersonville that like literally anybody can sit in on, even if you don't really know what you're doing. And sometimes people don't, but they play a set number of old traditional songs, and they play them every week. And so there's a fiddle, there's some banjos, there's some guitars, there's some people who sing. And so she directs that jam. And she also instructs the arm of that organization that does little kid instruction for fiddle, guitar, and dance to try to keep it going for the next generation.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's really sweet. They used to have their jam at the bar that Dylan works at.
Mhm.
So every Wednesday night, there would just be this group of, oh, and all ages of old time musicians playing, like these very accessible renditions of traditional songs just in a circle in the middle of the bar. And it was so fun. They've since moved to another bar in Hendersonville. But if you want to hear her show, you can stream it from the website wncw.org Sundays from 3 to 6. So if you don't get 88.7 as WNCW wherever you live, you can pull it up online. It's so worth it. I learned so much from her show. She's so sweet, and she is like just doing the Lord's work consistently. I think she's been part of the clogging association that she's with for like 30 years. Like she's just so deep in it and knows so much and is such a treasure. So that's my sound check for today, is yapping about Carol Rifkin and her traditional old time music knowledge.
That's so cool and so important. I think there's a lot of old knowledge that is in danger of being lost right now in the South, but in other places too. And what a service to give back to the community and teach kids and keep that alive. That's so cool.
Yeah. And the association has a fundraiser every year that's like this whole big to do with local celebrities that all goes back into keeping that kids program alive so that all these little kids can keep learning about old time. And it's so cute.
That's awesome. That's very cool. Has it happened already this year? Like, is it a fall thing?
It must be late fall. It might even be into winter.
Well, then,
But whenever it comes up, I'll let y'all know. It's hard to get to. I've never been able to go. Even like as someone who lives here and knows a lot of people who play music, it's hard to get tickets. So if anybody gets tickets to the Jam Kids fundraiser, call me.
and if anybody who's listening is fundraiser planning, that means you should raise your ticket prices a little bit and make a little bit more money on them.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, too easy. Yeah, go listen to WNCW. If you're in an area where you get it, just keep your radio tuned to it because it's the best. There are so many great shows. I just chose the one that had a badass woman host, although there are a couple. But if anybody wants to yap about public radio with me.
Also, This Old Porch, good title. I like it. I'm into it.
Isn't it good? There are several of them that are really clever. There's one called Country Gold on Sunday mornings where they go back through whatever the country hits were this week in the 70s or the 60s or the 50s.
Mm.
And it's really cool and wholesome. I just learned so much from the radio. Love it.
Support public radio.
We will mutual aid our radios forever, I guess.
We shouldn't have to, but we will.
I'm gonna go broke supporting teachers and my public radio station, but I will go broke before I lose either of them. Hey, what's going on for you lately? Anything that you want to give us an update about?
Okay, so this is one of our segments that we hadn't had a chance to do one of yet, but I thought this would be a good time to start a little county chair confessional mini series. My confessional this week is that Granville County is cursed. And Granville County is, or at least the Granville County Democrats, seem to be cursed with boots during canvassing season because I have fractured my tibia and I'm in a
Ow.
boot on my driving foot. So I can't even drive a canvasser to go knock doors right now. I'm a little salty. I'm a little uncomfortable. I'm a little really don't want to have surgery. TBD on that.
Okay.
But this is the second boot in 2 years because last year when House Rep Brian Kahn was running for his election, he fractured his foot too. And he was brave and he
Okay.
knocked doors with it. And I'm sorry, but this is a volunteer position and I am going to put my health slightly above. And I've been told to keep weight off this thing.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, but if you're running for office, you gotta just power through it. So you made the right call, Brian, and you're also making the right call, Liz. In my humble opinion,
Yeah.
I just want your foot and tibia to be better. When did they decide about surgery?
I have a Monday morning appointment and I was like, "Do you mean my options are surgery or do you mean options?" And the doctor was like, "No, surgery." So I'm hoping that doctor number 1 is wrong and doctor number 2 gives me a message that I like some more, but doctor number 2 was on the phone
Okay.
consulting with doctor number 1. So
Oh no.
I don't like the idea of it at all, and I really just want it to be a sprained ankle that's gonna heal itself in, like, 4 to 6 weeks, but,
Yes. Yes.
I've
But it's not.
yeah, I've had an X-ray and a CAT scan, sure.
Yeah. It's
Um,
not that. I'm so sorry.
yeah, so
That sucks.
unfortunate for me, I did text Brian a picture of the boot and was like, "Cursed," and he said, "Rite of passage." So,
He said, welcome. He said, I'm not going to feel bad for you. I canvassed on that thing. So
pretty much.
I'll give you a lot of sympathy, though. You can send pictures to me.
Oh, thanks. So I'll keep you posted. I obviously don't want to be, don't want to have surgery or like, the drugs that are needed for that and the way that could keep me off my schedule for a couple days, but I'm definitely in
Yeah.
the listen to the doctor's camp. It was like a week and a half of texting my sister who is a charge nurse, so like literally her job
Mm.
is assess what's wrong with you and figure out whether you need to
Yeah.
go to the doctor. When she was like, "Yeah, me and my fellow charge nurse, our professional opinion is that you ought to go." So I said, "Okay, I guess I'm going."
Well, I appreciate your resilience here. I know it's going to be hard, but I appreciate that you're even thinking about canvassing. And this is truly grassroots politics in a nutshell. It's just all of us out here trying to keep the work going, regardless of what else we have going on.
Yeah, I was at a
So,
canvas launch this morning.
oh my God. Okay, stay home sometimes.
I didn't know whether we were going to need 2 trainers or just 1, and I wanted my lead person to be supported, but I'm also really trying to work on delegating, and this is a good reminder, and hopefully I can use it effectively to twist some arms and to go in and knock on some doors.
Twist some arms, put some arms in a cast.
Ugh.
Oh man. Well, we're all sending you so much love. Um, and before we sign off, we wanted to share that there is a fun event happening in Greensboro this weekend. It's the North Carolina Folk Festival. So if you got excited hearing us talk about old time music, go to the Folk Festival. In its little description says it honors, celebrates, and shares the meaningful ways communities express their creativity and cultural traditions through music, dance, food, crafts, and other folk art. We love that.
Yeah. And we actually have some like family of friends who are going to be playing there. Our friend from the hometown holler, Daniel Ayers, his sister is half of Chatham Rabbits, and they are playing from 4 to 5 on Sunday the 14th. Seems like a really cool Americana band. Honestly, like the bands looked really cool, and if I were more capable of standing up without crutches right now, I would really think about what I'm doing that Sunday. But alas, go see Chatham Rabbits for me. Somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're great. Chatham Rabbits are great. And I didn't know that that was Daniel's sister until like yesterday. So that's exciting to find out. Also, Steep Canyon Rangers are going to be there. They are out of Brevard and they're pretty hot shit in like the bluegrass, newgrass world. I'm partial to them cuz they're from right next door. But also Steve Martin plays banjo with them and sings
The
sometimes.
Steve Martin?
Yeah. Isn't that
That's
funny?
that what is
Yeah, he played banjo for a long time and heard Steep Canyon Rangers and was like, that I would like to play with that band. And so they collaborate sometimes and sometimes play live together and have some recorded stuff together. It's a really interesting thing to like everybody in Western North Carolina is one person removed from Steve Martin pretty much. Also, Palmyra is playing there and they were just recently signed to John Prine's record label, which is called Oh Boy Records. I have a soft spot for them, not only because all things John Prine, but because they came out to Hendersonville last year to play our annual P Flag fundraising event. So anybody who is willing to come out and fundraise for local families and the queer community in rural North Carolina is like my favorite band. So if you're in the area, go see both of them. They'll be worth it.
I love that. I also knew looking at this lineup, I was like, man, Gina's gonna know a bunch more of these bands than I do.
Yeah, I have a list, but I'm gonna stop. Two's good. Y'all, if y'all go, you'll know what you like. Go find that.
And if you're in the triangle side of the state this weekend, don't forget that the Hot Sauce Festival is going on in Granville County Friday the 12th and Saturday the 13th. It's really delicious and chaotic and gets bigger every year, and it's so much fun. And the Granville County Democratic headquarters is right in the middle of it, and we're going to be open all day and giving out free food around lunchtime, like grilling out. So if you're in the area, come say hi.
Cool. I love that so much. Thanks, y'all, for listening. We'll be back next week with more of the Foxfire Dispatch, progressive Southern stories through and through. We put out episodes weekly on Fridays, and if you like our content, you can find us at the Foxfire Dispatch on Instagram, YouTube, Blue Sky, and Foxfire Dispatch on TikTok and Twitter, which is what we call it forever.
I'm bound and determined that's not going to change. Until next time, don't forget that we are who we're waiting for, so go get in some good trouble.